Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. Global markets have witnessed turbulence after US President Donald Trump announced sweeping tariffs with a 10% baseline tariff on all the imports from all the countries, and also steeper measures when you talk about around 60 countries which have got apparently a trade surplus with the United States of America. We've also seen condemnations pouring in from the world leaders, also from the allies and the rivals of the United States of America. Like China, for example, has said that it will impose a reciprocal 34% tariffs on all the imports from the United States of America, adding that the tariffs do not comply with the international trade rules. We've also seen the European Union terming these tariffs as a major blow to the global economy. On the other hand, we have seen President Donald Trump, however, defending his tariff policy, saying tariffs would bring in billions of dollars in revenue. Earlier, he had said that the reciprocal tariffs were a response to the duties and other non-tariff barriers put on the U.S. goods. New levies will boost manufacturing jobs at home. We have also seen JP Morgan Chase chief has warned that the Trump's tariffs could raise prices, tip the global economy into recession, and weaken America's standing in the world by tearing up its alliances. We've also seen Pakistan's stock exchanges witnessing the largest intraday low today, later on recovering partially at the close. It came in the wake of President Donald Trump also imposing 29% of tariffs on imports from Pakistan. We've also seen Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb in a news conference saying, let me quote, "This is not something we are overly concerned about, but we want to address the issue," unquote. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests to talk about this particular pressing issue the world is faced with. Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, former ambassador, joining us in the studio. Mr. Ambassador Khan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Yasir Masood, international relations expert. Mr. Masood, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Shikoh Atif on Skype, senior economist. Mr. Atif, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Ambassador Khan. These trade tariffs, firstly, what this particular tool is, how does it actually work? And by looking at these new trade tariffs on the part of US President Donald Trump, as per your understanding, what are the intended objectives and goals? And do you think by following this particular policy, which is defended once again in one of his posts on his Truth Social account, do you think it is going to serve the purpose?
The simple answer to your question is that tariffs are usually ways in which countries defend or protect their local industry. What are the effects of tariffs? There is a confusion, it seems, as far as the Trump administration is concerned, because I've heard them say that the tariffs will be paid by the countries that are sending goods to us. That makes absolutely no sense in any book of any economist. Basically, it is tariffs are going to be paid by the person within the United States who is importing the goods.
Right.
This will have two effects. The cost of those goods will go up. And secondly, in a lot of cases, it has been seen that local manufacturers also manage to raise their prices because their competitive goods that are being imported have gone up in price. The other effect that it will have is that the government, of course, will be able to collect essentially a tax. So a Republican government, which has always been saying that we will not put additional taxes, and since 2017 has been giving tax breaks to the biggest companies over there, essentially has brought about the largest tax on the American people. Apart from that, there is bound to be retaliatory measures. So other countries will also suffer the consequences. As you have mentioned, markets become uncertain and volatile. And this will not only happen in the United States, it will happen globally. Initially, this war was started, the trade war was started in 2017, and was continued by the Biden administration. But this time, on the 2nd of April, they brought across the board tariffs on 185 countries. Interestingly enough, there is a case of one island which is uninhabited and has been slapped with 10% tariffs. So somebody said perhaps it is one way to prevent some other exporter from actually going to that island and trying to find a loophole to bypass the tariffs. Now, as far as Pakistan is concerned, yes, we are an economy that relies a great deal on exports to the United States. We have over $6 billion worth of exports, and there will not only be market volatility here, but it will also cause an inflationary effect if we slap retaliatory tariffs on goods that come from the United States.
Okay, so let me bring in Mr. Masood into the discussion also. Mr. Yasir Masood, what's your understanding when we talk about this particular imposition of tariffs on the part of US President Donald Trump, specifically in a case of China? We've also seen condemnation on the part of the Chinese officials coming regarding it. What sort of options do you think China would have in order to steer through this particular phase of its relationship when it comes to on the front of trade with the United States of America? 34% on all the imports from the United States of America. Already we saw the US president doing it twice after taking office back in January. But the response on the Chinese side was very selective in those two cases. But this time around, they have come up with a 34% imposition of tariffs on all the imports from the US. Your understanding?
Thank you for having me on the show, Jawad. This is a very pertinent question regarding, we see a flurry of tariffs emanating from the United States of America. And the obsession for tariffs is not dying down from the Donald Trump. As far as China is concerned, it put together around 54% of the total tariff which is being imposed on China, considering the 25% preceding one and these 34% now. I think China's response had been very measured even in the previous cases, but this time around, it has been reciprocal tariffs being imposed by China. Now, Chinese response has been measured, but at the same time, I would like to say that during the 2018 to 2024, if we calculate the Trump-Biden administration tariff, it has costed around 233 billion additional costs borne by the US consumers, with 144 billion alone during the Biden administration. So up until now, tariffs hasn't been very effective for the US. And likewise, it has never been effective for any other economy. CNN just a couple of days ago quoted that US families has to borne about 5,000 more costs annually. As far as China is concerned, in 2024, it has maintained its growth rate of 5%. With green technology having a major share of 40% to GDP growth. And also it has been, we have seen the trade surplus of $1 trillion, which is an increase, 21% increase from 2023. Now, what are the options? I think China has already, as far as amplifying its role, especially in the global South. And that's what I think right now United States of America is doing in the Western Hemisphere. If you see, US has only implemented about 10% on different states like Latin America. So exactly the same way, China has been amplifying, strengthening its role in ASEAN. It is strengthening its role in the BRICS. It is strengthening its role in the RCEP, which is one of the largest trading, platform. Likewise, the BRICS is also, is an alternative platform where there is already, talks are going on how to have alternative currencies. So I think China has been, already has envisaged this kind of policy, which will uh, be emanating from the United States of America. So I think there are a lot of options available as far as the economy is concerned. The projection for 2025 is again about 4 to 5% to 5% in total. So I
Okay.
think China has been, trying to realign with its partners, especially in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, and global South on a broader scale.
Right, I get your point. I'll have to move to Mr. Shikoh. Mr. Shikoh, what's your understanding? How are you looking at these tariffs now, especially when we talk about that 10% baseline tariff imposed on 185 countries from around the world, and also around 60 countries where we see apparently a trade surplus of those countries with the United States of America. Those goals and objectives which have been reiterated by US President Donald Trump, do you think this policy is going to serve those objectives, especially when we talk about boosting the manufacturing jobs back in the United States of America, also bringing in billions of dollars in revenue there?
Sure. So this tariff is going to be highly inflationary across the globe. Uh, the American focus is solely on goods. So they're just like matching goods with goods exported with goods imported. What it fails to understand is that uh, what they've miscalculated is that US is the largest exporter of services across the globe. Now, in these tariff calculations, they are just saying, okay, what goods are coming from China? What goods are going out from the US? So it's all miscalculated. It is misaligned. Even the mathematics is wrong as far as the work that they've done. So, but unfortunately, the consequences of it are going to be dire for various organizations. You mentioned China. If what the economists are looking at is if there is going to be one winner out of all of this, is going to be China as it realigns its trading relationships across the globe, and that's the economy that the whole world is looking at. For Pakistan, as long as uh, the the energy costs stayed low, the impact is not going to be that severe. However, I'm sitting in Toronto at the present moment. Just to give you one idea, the tariffs imposed on Canadian imports into the US were 20%. The profit margin of the people bringing the cars in was 5%. So no one is going to pay extra 15%, like 20% extra tariff to then make a profit of 5%. So that the automotive industry has actually just gone wiped out from Canada. Just to give you one example of how catastrophic this initiative is.
Right, I'll come back to you with one other important point to be discussed with you, Mr. Ambassador Nasir Khan. We are short of time. I just want you to give me an understanding when we talk about this statement by Mr. Marco Rubio saying businesses around the world, including in trade and global trade, they just need to know what the rules are. Once they know what the rules are, they will adjust to those rules, acknowledging that there has been turbulence in the global markets after these tariffs were imposed.
That is ironical to say the least, because these steps that have been taken in imposing these tariffs are absolutely unilateral, without consulting or without basing their decisions on the rules-based economic order that has been going on for several decades via the WTO.
Right.
So when you talk about rules, you have to work by international rules, and they are not doing that. Also, they themselves, or for that matter, any economist in the world, cannot predict the total effect of tariffs on the US economy. So at the end of the day, there are all kinds of conflicting views. For example, there is one narrative that says when we impose these tariffs, a lot of central banks all over the world will panic and reduce their interest rates because the economies might try to start to slow down. And as a result of that, their currencies, the value of their currency will drop. So essentially, if I'm exporting something to the US and there's a 20% tariff, but my currency has fallen by 20%, so the consumer in the US will not experience any inflationary effect. That is not true at all. Similarly, I heard somebody say that these people in Europe are not fair because when we send cars over to Europe, they put VAT on it. I don't think they realize that VAT is a sales tax. It applies to German cars being sold in Germany or in Europe as well. So there is no real disadvantage in sending cars to Europe. So, there is a lack of understanding, and a lot of people, including economists within the US, are quite baffled. So there is this opinion by some people that this is not a well thought out gesture. But on the other hand, it is also possible that Donald Trump, being a master negotiator, has come up initially on the 2nd of April with these huge tariffs, which will be negotiated. There are more than 50 countries that have gone to negotiate. And by the 9th of April, which is in a couple of days, they might revise these tariffs. But all said and done, there is no doubt in my mind that it has created a major upheaval in global economies and global supply chains.
We are short of time. I want your quick view regarding as to the options Pakistan might be having, how to navigate through this particular phase. A quick point of view regarding that, especially when you already mentioned that US is the largest trading partner of Pakistan. We are exporting around the total chunk of exports to the US out of the overall for Pakistan is 18%. So, but in terms of American perspective towards Pakistan, it happens to be 0.16% somewhere.
Yes, but to make a point, if Pakistan was the only country in the region or in the sort of industries that we export to the United States, then it might have a negative impact. So you need to realize that our competitors are also being slapped with tariffs. So that doesn't necessarily mean we will be losing markets. On the other hand, there are certain areas, like in the case of China and in India, that goods will be dearer because their tariffs are higher, and those might be replaced by goods and services from Pakistan.
Get your point. Mr. Yasir Masood, if you want to give me your understanding quickly regarding this particular statement by Marco Rubio, talking of the rules and the markets around the world automatically adjusting to these new rules. Also, we have seen China saying that these tariffs by the US are against the international trade rules. Your quick understanding regarding it, please.
Yes, China is absolutely right about it, because if we turn the clock back to history, especially the times of 1971, we must understand that US is accustomed to acting as a global hegemon. You see, it reflects what Donald Trump has just recently been doing. It reflects to Richard Nixon's 1971 actions, which changed the Bretton Woods system altogether, dismantled it. So when it comes to the global hegemon unilateral interests, regardless of the fact that how horrendous implications it can have on its own allies, let's, for example, European Union is such a strong ally of the US. There are humongous repercussions on the global order. And then I would like to give another example of the Volcker shock of 1980s, which raised interest rates, creating a debt crisis in the global south and diminishing their economic prospects. Although China avoided that, but the main question is why US is doing this. Right now, the trade deficits of United States of America are massive. The national debt. especially the short-term debt, are exceeding about more than 8.66 trillion with interest rates of above 4%. So
Do you think, either yes or no, do you think these measures are going to actually overcome those trade deficits?
not likely, because it's
I get your point. I'll have to move to Mr. Shikoh Atif. Mr. Shikoh Atif, Pakistan's options, especially US being the largest trading partner with Pakistan, the exports, a major chunk of exports going to the US. Should Pakistan be seeking diverse markets to send its exports?
Of course, and every country in the world is seeking diverse markets right now, except for one. There is one country in the world that has been left out of these tariffs, and that is Russia, the only country that the US has not put any tariffs on. We have to look for alternative trading partners like everyone else is doing. Unfortunately,
I get your point, Mr. Shikoh Atif. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll have to end the show right over here. Yasir, Economist, joining us from Canada. Thank you very much for being with us. Mr. Yasir Masood, international relations expert. Thank you very much for being with us on this show. Mr. Nasir Ali Khan from Ambassador, joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for your time also, Mr. Ambassador, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.